Welcome back, everyone. This is Card Lounge with Roboskillz and
TwicebakedJake.
And Jake. We were just talking about some interesting collection craze, the hobby, the fires, the plays going on, the market mayhem.
Yeah.
It is insane right now.
Yeah, I was talking to you a little bit about that. Is that people are trying to do not even the next play, but they're thinking, okay, what's the one after the next play, which is everyone knows that Prismatic Evolutions brought hype to the Evolutions, right?
Yep.
So all the Evolution cards went up. So clearly that's no longer the play.
Right.
So then the next one would be Journey Together. So now you're seeing Lily cards and N cards and other Trainer-S cards are climbing up in value. But even that's no longer the play. And now it's like the Rocket
Team
set.
Rocket and the Jesse and James from him. I remember when that Jesse and James full art trainer card was like $1 or $2.
Yeah, me too. I remember.
You could pick them up for $2 all day long.
I also remember. There's a bunch of.
And now they're what, like 30, 40 raw?
Yeah.
And then graded, they're a couple hundred.
Yeah, and it's the same with like Giovanni and like Persians and Meowth cards and Mewtwo cards. Like anything that even is semi-Team Rocket related is now climbing in value. And it's all speculation.
It is. It's all speculation. We probably have a lot of listeners that either are aware of these plays or maybe are even making these plays themselves. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the main driving force for thinking so many moves ahead? And the thing is, if everyone is thinking about it and everyone is aware of the play and trying to do it, will it fall flat because of the awareness, in the sense that, okay, Team Rocket set comes out. Why does someone want to go back and collect an old Giovanni's Exile? Just collect the new Giovanni's SAR they'll probably make, and they'll do what? A Rocket's Blastoise, a Rocket's Charizard. Why would they not just start collecting those? Why does that make an old school Hidden Fates Jesse James increase 10x? Go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, like people are just trying to climb. Ultimately, people are thinking about what was the last card in their head almost, and it's still modern plays. You're absolutely right. I don't think it's real. I obviously it's real, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be you go up 5 steps and you fall down 2 or 3. So ultimately, they're still more expensive than they used to be. But I do think there is going to be a correction in the future where a card going up from $1 to $40 is astoundingly unnatural to the point where
in less than a year.
Yeah, it's
40x.
Well, we're talking about like less than a month. Like it's going from $1 to 40 in like just January.
Was it like $1 or $2 a month ago?
Yeah, like literally.
I thought it had been steadily kind of climbing.
Let me track it for you. But literally,
I think we'll track the price.
Literally, I think the Rocket hype started right after Prismatic hype.
Well, right, when they announce it, right? You see Rocket teaser stuff. We don't even know Rocket cards
Right, that's
yet.
the thing about Team Rocket set is that we know so little about it, but people are just already, it's just what we said, which is speculation.
Okay, well,
it's
so see, maybe we're over-speculating it in our head. I'm wondering if it even jumped that much. See, guys, and you guys are already probably wondering, and that's why you guys listen to the Card Lounge, because we'll just do the work for you, and then you can just listen to us.
All right, I'm going to look it up right now, and yeah. The hype started right around January 1st. It looks like raw copies of Team Rocket.
Really?
Yeah. Like, the hype was right around.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Started right
Wow.
around. I'm just going to let you know,
month ago.
I've already looked at this chart. So that's why I knew. But ultimately, January.
Well, good for you.
Well, a lot of the Team Rocket cards, like the Giovanni full
that's
art,
crazy.
the Jesse and James, the Mewtwo,
Yeah.
they did start climbing in as early as November. But ultimately, the largest spike happened recently. And some of those cards are already starting to dip a little bit. Because ultimately, when a card climbs up 40x in the span of 2 weeks,
the market's
and if you have that card and I have that card,
you're going to put it on the market.
You're going to put it on the market because why not? This card just went up 40x.
Right. A card I got for $1, it sells for 40. Yeah, I'm going to sell it.
You're going to sell it all day long.
I know later I can just pick it up for $5 or $10 or wherever it ends up being later. Although, you know what's so funny? People probably thought that about selling their Umbreons at $1,500,
Sure,
$1,700 in a PSA 10, thinking like, oh, when it goes back down to 1,000, I'll just pick it up again. But how many people sold their Umbreons on the way up and now it's at like 3K.
So-
but it's kind of like the anomaly.
So
card, right?
I will talk about that a little bit, is that I don't really play in that space where I'm not tracking my cards prices on a day basis where I'm trying to think
same.
about when's the optimal time to sell my card. There are people that do that.
Right.
That's just not me. I buy cards and I like them and I'll hold on to them long term. I don't think about whether this is the optimal time to pick up a card. But if I see a card that used to be $1 and it's now $40 within the span of a month, that's a card that I'm not going to pick up at $40 because obviously I like a good deal. And any cards that jumps up 4,000% in the span of a month is not a good deal. That's
Correct.
just me as a collector. I'm just wary of bad deals.
Okay, so then how can we help our listeners of the pod if all the plays have been, if Journeys Together was like, okay, invest in these cards, if, just the teasing of the Team Rocket returns set coming back, everyone's already like buying up Rocket stuff. I did have a question. I asked you this off air. It's kind of interesting. Is the Pokemon hobby so hot right now and so many people are just paying attention in every sector, whether it's vintage, modern, ultra modern, promo cards, players are looking at playable cards, collectors are looking at purely collectibles, graded versus non-graded. Are there really any plays left that someone just getting in, whereas like, you and I, when we got in the hobby, there were just certain things on the shelves or certain things that if you understood, like, wait, Sun and Moon came out 3 years ago. Wait, this collection box has 2 Sun and Moon packs in it. I should pick. That's like a no-brainer, right?
Sure.
But people were obviously not paying attention that hard. We talk about 6 or 7 months ago, the 151 UPCs. Everyone's pushing and shoving each other over the Blooming Waters. But the UPCs, which was a much better buy per pack, were just sitting on Costco shelves forever. Yep. Is there a play that the average collector now can come into the hobby and make to try to multiply or have their collection kind of grow and flourish from that anyone can make that isn't already kind of used or already thought of?
For me personally, I would say there are cards that haven't wiggled at all. There are cards out there that haven't jumped up at all. People think like, oh, every single card is spiking up in value, but there's a bunch of areas that we know are still flatline. Things like vintage era. We know like base set Charizard, base set Blastoise, Neo Lugia, Jungle Eevee. It's the rookie card of Eevee, and that card is still like readily available and readily affordable. So if you're someone that's okay with collecting vintage cards, which vintage used to be the hotness, it's currently not the hotness, but that's an area that is currently still very collectible, and it's easy to pick up cards too. There are a ton of cards that you can still pick up that are well below $1. I tell people this all the time, is that people think like every single card is super expensive, especially if it's vintage, but you can collect the vast majority of like base set, jungle, and fossil. It would be common and uncommon cards, of course, but all of those cards are still below $1. So you can get a very nice binder for a very affordable price really quickly and easily.
That is true. What about for graded though? I mean, to try to pick up, I think what's interesting, especially about vintage, to find those in a 10 is still, you got to put respect on the price there.
Sure.
Like a vintage 10 goes up for market, the right eyeballs are on it and are making sure that thing isn't selling for less than a couple thousand, for a common holo. What I do think is interesting, and you're probably aware of this too, I wonder how many people out there are aware of this, is I'm personally for older vintage cards where I know even if I were to buy a booster pack, how much that would cost. Like say Expedition, for example.
Yeah.
Some of those holos in a PSA 9 are not thousands of dollars. Sure. You can pick them up for like a couple hundred. And I'm like, well, if I can pick up this Expedition Holo Kingler for $150, I mean, if I buy a booster pack, it's going to be what, $400 or $500? Mm-hmm. And I have to open it and maybe get a holo or not. And maybe if I get the holo, it's got to grade well. Yeah. So like at least like will it get a 9? Like it could get way lower, and if it's a 10, it'd have to be pristine. But really, most vintage packs, holos are coming out like kind of in 9 condition. So it's like, can I just buy the PSA 9?
Yeah, you absolutely can. And
Yeah.
I can't speak for every single graded card because I don't track all of them on a day-to-day basis. But the cards that I at least think about are like Pikachu promo cards. There's actually a ton of Pikachu promo cards that are still $40 or $30 in like a PSA 10. Those are readily available, but those are things like, do you know the Scarlet and Violet Pikachu promo card that was available with the Scarlet and Violet game in Japan? It's the Japanese Pikachu promo. It has the 3 starters.
Yes.
Yeah, that card in a PSA 10, that's a $40 PSA 10. And it's a cool card. It's a cool card.
It was reprinted. That is the English version's Paldea Evolve.
There's an
ETB
English version
promo,
of it, but there's a
right?
Japanese version of it.
No,
And,
right.
Yeah, and ultimately, like both versions are really cool. They're both
Yeah.
promo cards. I would say like that's an example of a card that is still affordable in the $30 to $40 range in a PSA 10 if people really wanted it.
It is funny. I would kind of value that. Well, then I would say, I'm sure we would both stamp it with this, but it would be undervalued in my opinion. That card kind of has the flair and kind of hollow look of like a Battle Festa Pikachu, because it's like, Pikachu is kind of the center of the card, and then but it's centered and surrounded by a bunch of fellow Pokemon from that era of the game. So you're kind of like, oh, it's like a Battle Festa since they stopped making those. And you see how expensive those are. So
the reason that card isn't spiking up in value is because there's no speculation around that card in the same way where there's not going to be a large Scarlet and Violet push because obviously it's already here.
Right.
So people are specifically picking up cards that they think newer sets are going to have an impact on for prior sets because what history is showing is that it's going to repeat itself. They've already seen that happen with the Evolving Skies, so they're just going to say, oh, I'm just going to use this same playbook for future cards.
Right. So that would mean, guys, if you want to make the really, really smart plays, you got to think outside the box, outside the playbook. Because, the copying of the playbook would be, look at how crazy Prismatic Evolutions was. It had this predetermined hype. It was purely just speculation. Prismatic Evolutions, really hard to pull the SARs, but it's all off the strength of how much we care about Evolving Skies. So you really need to have that kind of, it's like almost like going in on cards purely based off of speculative success.
And I think that's risky, though.
It is risky. Well, you know what other card hobby does that more so than Pokemon, and actually has been told by other content creators in more related to this hobby that's kind of how the markets move there. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Sports cards.
Well, that makes sense.
Sports cards, instead of just getting champions and people that are like, player of the years and people that are winning Super Bowl titles or whatever, it's like the way some cards increase from being like almost no value to like insane jumps is all off of speculative future success of that player.
Yeah, if there's a player that you really believe in and you're really rooting for and you want to put some money behind it, obviously you just buy their rookie card or their autograph card.
Right.
Or
you just buy the ones you like. The team.
And the goal is that they eventually becomes the next LeBron James or the next great football player or great hockey player or whatever. Yeah. And if they do, then obviously you, who is someone who has been rooting for their success, profit or gain value from that.
Right.
And that is kind of like leaking into Pokemon a little bit, where people are doing the same thing, where they're rooting for certain things to happen, and they don't even know if it might happen.
Right. Just like you don't know with players. I remember Trevor Lawrence. I have a Trevor Lawrence to 10. I'm wondering if there's any Trevor Lawrence collectors out there.
What happened to him?
I still have it. Oh, well, I have that card, but when I pulled that card, I filmed it on video. Every comment was like, are you selling that card? I want that card. Are you selling it?
Yeah.
I'll give you a good price for it. Now, I haven't made a video. It's just like no one's really asking for that card because I guess Trevor Lawrence just didn't perform as like the Jaguars quarterback. But I don't know. Like, what if in 2 years the Jaguars win the Super Bowl? Then is everyone going to want them again?
But that happens quite often, is that there's lots of like young upstart rookies. And I will say 9 out of 10 times, they don't become a LeBron James,
Right.
obviously.
Well, yeah.
9 out of 10 times, they do not become the next big star.
Right. As it makes sense statistically
Sure.
speaking. So as we see more of a trend in that kind of, I don't know, logic playing in how people are buying and selling Pokemon cards, how does that really work for TCG in the sense that, right, sports, obviously every year you get new rookies because there's new players that need to fill teams and older players retire and so on and so forth. Charizard never really retires. Pikachu doesn't retire.
Yeah.
Is Umbreon looked at as this new rookie that because of the Moonbreon, people were like, oh, people don't put enough respect on other Umbreon cards,
Sure. And
like prices?
I think we talked about this a little bit, is that we thought Charizard was always going to be like the #1 favorite Pokemon.
Yeah.
And we always knew that Charizard's popularity was waning a little bit. And people do kind of get sick if you shove
The same
Pokemon again and
a
again.
little bit of character fatigue.
And there was a period of time in the Sun and Moon era specifically where I think like there were so many sets where every single set that came out seemed to have a Charizard chase card. I'm talking about like Champion's Path, Darkness Ablaze, like every single set, Shining Fates. All of these sets had a Charizard as a big chase card inside of them. It felt that way for a period of time.
Well, that was Sword and Shield, though. Not Sun and Moon.
You're right. I messed up. You're right. It is Sword and Shield.
Oh, you mean okay?
Yeah, but
you
in the
meant
Sword
and Shield.
Yeah, I meant Sword and Shield because
Okay.
obviously Charizard was also a big Pokemon in the Sword and Shield game.
Was it? You're right.
You're right.
Because of Lance's Charizard.
But there was a reason.
or no, Leon's Charizard.
Yes, Leon's
Leon's
Charizard. But ultimately, my point is that like they didn't have to make Charizard a big deal in the Sword and Shield era again. They just they made that conscious decision of giving the champion a Charizard, which people were also kind of critiquing. Was do we really need the champion for this region to also have a Charizard as like his iconic Pokemon?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because we've already had prior champions where their iconic Pokemon is, Charizard's already been big in the series.
Yeah.
So
I think he's still big in the current anime series.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I still think Charizard will always be popular. It's
Right.
not like Charizard
It's-
suddenly is no longer popular.
Correct.
But ultimately, yes, Umbreon's kind of taken over that throne where now people automatically assume, oh, if it's an Umbreon card, it's going to be expensive. And that kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Where if you pull an Umbreon card, you're just going to price it more. You've seen what happened with the new Evolution tins. The Umbreon tin is more expensive than all the other tins simply because it's the Umbreon tin.
I know.
Which is how the market is currently psychologically inflating Umbreon.
Ooh, this is a good little deep dive we can do on the podcast. Why do you think, and viewers at home, you can play along with us, just say the answer to yourself. I'm curious why you think Umbreon is the most popular evolution, because I think I know why.
Well, okay, for me personally, it makes sense. Umbreon is just a really cool design.
He does look cool.
It's much, because it could be a female Umbreon.
Oh, what did I?
You said he does look.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Or
You're fine. You're fine.
You know what? But Jolteon looks cool. Flareon
I don't
looks
think
cool.
they do. I think I'm gonna be honest. I think Jolteon looks a little goofy because it's very spiky. I almost don't want to touch Jolteon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he's full of static electricity.
Yeah, but it's not like an easy animal to pet. Where I think Umbreon is a really cool design, glowing moon.
That's easy to pet.
Well, yes, I think it's a very endearing design. Simple but cool.
Okay.
Umbreon was always popular. I would say Umbreon since release has always been one of the most popular evolutions. So I'm not super surprised by it. But why do you think Umbreon's the most popular?
Well, this is why I think it's interesting, because you said you grew up with Gold and Silver.
Yeah.
You played the Gold and Silver, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a really hard time getting an Umbreon because I didn't know how to get one.
Really?
Well, you got to understand, I was like a 7-year-old kid, and there weren't really guides back in those days.
I was a little older.
And I remember how to get like Flareon and Jolteon and Vaporeon because, obviously you use
the stones.
The stones. But Espeon and Umbreon really boggled me because I couldn't figure out how they worked until much later on when I was like, oh, now I know what to do.
There's no stones.
Right.
They use the stones to destroy the stones.
You had to be a certain level of like friendship with them, and it had to be like a specific time of day.
Did you even just get what reference I made?
No.
Oh my gosh.
You had to destroy the stones? What stones are we talking about?
No, okay, forget it. But in the game, you caught an Umbreon eventually?
I mean, I eventually evolved one, yes.
You eventually evolved one, right?
Sure. Why is it cool? Are we still on that?
Do you remember the battle tower?
I kind of remember. You got to understand, this was 20 years ago.
I know, but I still remember this.
Okay, I do remember a battle tower where you can beat multiple opponents. Go
Okay,
on.
so I honestly, even when I was a kid, still didn't really master EV training till I like kind of learned about it later as an older person and really like EV training your Pokemon. This is all speculative. I'm not saying I'm right one way or another definitively, but
Okay.
outside, like Umbreon came out at the same time as Espeon. So you have Espeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Vaporeon. They all play like an elemental role. Stats though, not so great.
Okay.
Umbreon was on my team of 6.
Okay.
And eventually, competitively, when you could battle other people, Link style, you would battle like 3-on-3. Umbreon was, I believe, if I remember correctly, one of the more popular kind of tanky Pokemon. That's why I remember. So
Sure.
I have a very, very strong memory as a kid of Umbreon had mean look, and Umbreon could also use Toxic. I think you could teach it Toxic, or you would have another Pokemon, right, that could use Toxic. And a very common winning strategy, which I even remember implementing, was you would have Umbreon on your team as a tank. You would have a Pokemon put Toxic on a Pokemon.
Okay.
Switch out Umbreon into the field, and Umbreon would use Mean Look so that their Pokemon could not retreat. And Toxic does more and more damage over time, right? And Umbreon would just use Defense Curl, like just would boost its defense and special defense, and then use Moonlight to heal. So it was really like this unkillable, unbeatable tank.
Sure.
And I think eventually it got to the point where for a whole generation of people that took the video game very seriously, Umbreon was like this fan favorite or battle favorite that was like for a long period of time, like a top tier kind of, that was your tank Pokemon. And
Yeah.
other people would use different tanks, but if you like to play the way I just described, Umbreon was your best tank for that.
I don't disagree with you in any way.
Yeah.
I just think that for Umbreon specifically, it has to be a lot more endearing than that. 20 years ago, it was still popular.
And
like,
it looks cool. I
does
agree
look-
with you. It is a very cool design. I mean, it's like black, he's mysterious.
Misprint. You guys know what's great? Misprint.com. Misprint is the sponsor of today's Card Lounge podcast episode. A huge thank you to them for sponsoring us. If you'd like to check them out, click the link down in the description.
Yeah, Misprint is one of the newer marketplaces that's actually really revolutionizing the way you can shop for cards, because just like TCG Player, instead of looking at 1,000 listings for a bunch of different cards on like most of the marketplaces you see nowadays, you can actually search up one specific card and see every single seller and what price they're asking for that card.
I absolutely agree with that. I hate how when I go on eBay, I have to scour through thousands of listings to figure out which one is the best listing for me. And on misprint.com, it's all on a single page, super easy to navigate. And I do think they're going to absolutely revolutionize the way that we start buying and selling graded Pokemon cards. Because now, if I want to sell a PSA 10 graded Charizard card, I can immediately see what the sell price of that card is. And I can click one button and immediately sell it to someone without ever having to take a photo of that card.
Yeah, I think that's super convenient. I think it's going to be a great way to make it super easy for people to sell their stuff a lot quicker. And then you don't have to spend a bunch of time taking 1,000,000 photos of 1,000 different listings just to have a bunch of people try to search and find your stuff.
Misprint.com is owned by a colleague of ours, which is Ava's Binder. Definitely check out Misprint.com. I think they are going to make a huge impact on the hobby. If you'd like to sign up to Misprint.com, they are doing a special right now where they are doing mispriced Pokemon cards where you can pick up awesome graded Pokemon cards for as low as $5. So check them out, sign up, and watch how they grow and change how we collect Pokemon cards in the future.
And a huge shout outs to Misprint for sponsoring today's episode.
The one thing I'll say is that in the Evolving Sky set, okay?
Yeah.
I don't think Umbreon VMAX has the best art. I think
I know.
the art is really, really cool and iconic.
All right, we'll say the best one on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Sylveon.
Glaceon.
Neither of them are bad.
Actually,
I know you.
Sylveon is pretty cool looking.
I
too.
would actually say even Espeon is better than Umbreon. I would say Umbreon is like
Just lying on the house?
I love that. I think the art looks really, really good. Even if you're saying just lying on the house, the art is super detailed.
It is. No, it
it's
is
really
very,
nice.
It is very
It's like
nice.
a fairy tale. But ultimately, for Prismatic Evolutions, I think it's night and day. Like the Umbreon is clearly the best art of the bunch. It's not even close to me. Like from the pile, I thought, oh, Umbreon is clearly the best one.
Yeah, it does stand. Sylveon also looks good.
I'm not saying the other ones are terrible,
Right.
but if you had to pick one out of the bunch that is clearly like the most vibrant, colorful, intricately detailed,
I think it's the Sylveon.
you think the Sylveon is more detailed? I think the Umbreon just has more like designs and art in it. The other ones look more one color, but for Umbreon, which should just be black, they threw in a bunch of other colors. It's like got sparkles, it's got like glitter, it's just got more colors.
It doesn't. It's black and it's got the like sun, like red, yellow.
It's got a bunch of colors around it.
All of them have the color.
Right,
of the
they have like
gemstones
other
around
colors,
it.
but to me, like the Flareon is like really red, obviously.
Yeah.
The Vaporeon really, really blue. I think the
get what
Sylveon stands out as like clearly one of the best ones.
Right.
But
And the same about the Umbreon. Like
Correct.
I do, it's something about with the Umbreon just being a black card, the colors of all the colors of the
contrasts,
rainbow contrast, and it does give it a little more pop.
It does.
For sure.
And for me, at least, even from like the blurry leak that we saw, even back then, I was like, oh, the Umbreon is clearly going to be
the best looking.
the big one. It's going to be the super obvious top chase card. So,
I thought that with the blurry pics too. And then when I saw the Sylveon in high res, I still think the Sylveon, just when I look at them in person, that one looks the best to me.
I think I've already told this story, but when I first saw the Sylveon, I thought it looked super goofy on the blurry photo because I saw the giant crown and I thought it looks like it literally had a giant gemstone on its head, just a giant one. And it looks super bulbous and goofy.
Right.
But when I saw it in person and in more detail with the official reveal,
It
I was
looks
like,
a lot better.
It looks way better as just a rotating gemstone.
Yeah.
So I'll give Sylveon credit. It looks way better now than I initially thought it was.
Yeah, I think we both value those. And I think the prices actually reflect what we're saying. Because what you would say Umbreon first and then Sylveon second?
Yeah, it would be really close. I think the third would probably be Leafeon. I think the Leafeon really stands out.
I agree.
too.
See, I would say Sylveon first, Umbreon second, and then Leafeon or the Espeon looks really cool.
I know.
Espeon EX.
The Espeon looks really good. I think a lot of people like the Jolteon too. The Jolteon really stood out for me because I was surprised by how expensive it was and how many people more desire it compared to some of the other ones.
Interesting. Yeah, I felt like the Jolteon one looks a little plain, but I do feel like a lot of people like Jolteon.
Sure. So now the prices on the cards have kind of settled out, and the Umbreon is like very clearly a $1,500 raw card.
I know. And to get all the other SIRs, especially graded, you know what? This is probably going to be a very popular comment, and we should talk about this.
Okay.
People are going to ask, hey, Jake, hey, Robo, is now the best time to pick up if you see a PSA 10 of those evolutions? Would now be a good time to pick it up, or should I pick it up later? How do you feel about that?
I would say no. And the reason why I'm saying no is that for every other set that's ever come out, the best time to pick up the card has never been right at release.
When that set is active.
Right.
Yeah.
Like even for something like Evolving Skies or even for something like Evolving Skies, I was about to say Surging Sparks, but Surging Sparks isn't old enough.
Mm-hmm.
But even for older sets like Fusion Strike, Evolving Skies, Brilliant Stars, Lost Origin, most of these cards, the best time to pick them up was right around a year or two after release. Most people don't know this, but Evolving Skies is a 4-year-old set. Lost Origin is a 3-year-old set.
Wow,
the best time to pick up those cards was probably a year, maybe even 2 years after their release. And that's when they really saw their price climb is after that.
And then we just didn't pick it up then.
Yeah.
Actually, so a lot of people listening, and see, I wonder if we change the number. Nah, I mean, we don't have that many people listening to us, but I think that is actually a very good, I agree with what you're saying. And it's almost like if you just wanted to blindly buy stuff off of not having to think too hard, you could almost just, when a set comes out, the best time to buy the big hitters from that set, just wait exactly 1 year and then buy them then. And usually, like you're saying, that's a safer time. That's when they're kind of at their lowest cheapest costs.
I won't say for sure, but I will say at that point the market has settled.
Right.
It's whatever the price is at after a year is probably the right price.
You're right, because I mean it's just natural. People are focused on like what came out a year ago right now, like Scarlet Violet Base. No one's even talking about.
I'm gonna tell you
the
right
hits.
now, Scarlet and Violet Base was 2 years ago.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's been 2 years. We've had 8 Scarlet and Violet era sets. That's how. Right.
Dude, time is going so fast.
I'm gonna tell you right now I'm gonna
wild.
tell you a set that's 2-year old right now is Paldea Evolve. Right now is when Paldea Evolve kind of started releasing.
Okay, so what came out a year ago? Paradox Rift?
Yes.
Okay, that proves my point because everyone just craps on Paradox Rift and they don't give a shit about it.
Yeah.
I think if you look at rares from Paradox Rift when they first came out, and if you look at them right now, I would bet. Well, I would say they'd all be lower, except a year ago, Pokemon was at kind of like no one was caring about Scarlet Violet.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say that prediction now.
Yeah, right now it's like everything's just, the market is just up and everything's on fire because...
But I'll tell people there are things that aren't on fire. You can still pick up like a Darkness Ablaze Elite Trainer box for I think like $50.
Yeah.
And that set is like 5 years old. So that's why I tell people like Journey Together is a normal set that's going to be released for a long time. It doesn't make sense for you to pay $90 for an Elite Trainer box of Journey Together when you get like 10 booster packs, and all of these older ETBs aren't even that expensive. You can still pick up Temporal Forces ETBs in Walmarts and GameStop the other day for like $60.
People are speculating.
Right, it's all speculation.
More expensive. It is a regular set. I also think if you're buying Journeys Together right now for $200 a booster box pre-order, that's just too much. It's too much for a regular set.
And I've told people this, is that I don't think the cards are bad. I think the cards are super cool. It only has 6 special illustration rare. It only has a dozen illustration rare. It's the same amount of pull rates as like Stellar Crown. Yeah. In Stellar Crown, I pulled, I think, like 4 Bulbasaurs and 4 Squirtles. Some of those went out to viewers after a couple of booster boxes. Yeah. But I pulled them quite often. And the reason I pulled them so often was because there's only 12 illustration rares. If you pull one in every 12 booster packs, you're going to get
bound to get one of them. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that's helping Stellar Crown's kind of overall price point is the fact that you have a Bulbasaur and a Squirtle in there that are highly desirable.
People are going to say, well, Jake, though, that Squirtle and that Bulbasaur is like a $200 card in a PSA 10 right now.
Oh, my goodness.
I think the Bulbasaur is like $180, and I think the Squirtle is like $220 in a PSA 10.
People love Squirtle. People love Bulbasaur.
That's $400 for 2 illustration rares. 2 illustration rares that you could absolutely pull inside of the set.
That does seem off a little bit.
But
on you know what? Also granted, those are on the 10 prices. Doesn't it seem like right now, specifically on the 10s, like what you just described, there is a premium price on the 10s more so now than ever before. Almost like an extra premium. And is that just due to, even though that Squirtle and that Bulbasaur are very pullable, like you said, 1 out of 12 illustration rares, you open a booster box or 2, you're bound to hit one or maybe even both. But are you bound to hit one in good condition?
Yeah, that's ultimately, right now, I would say collect a card over collecting the grade. If you want to collect the grade, you can collect the grade. But for me right now, especially when cards are so expensive in a PSA 10, I would rather collect a card and take the risk that my card might be a PSA 10 or Gem Mint. I think especially if you can have a really wide range, because there are cards out there where a PSA 10, for the same price of a PSA 10, you can pick up 4 or 5 raw copies of a card.
Right.
And I'd rather just get 4 or 5 raw copies of that card. Even if some of them are like a PSA 8 or 7, I would say that's still better value for me personally as a collector than one PSA 10. If that card is truly not that rare.
That's true. And I would agree with that. So guys, remember, don't place so much value. If you really are just collecting and, wanting to be in this hobby in the sense that you just want to get all of your favorite cards and you truly don't care what grade a card is, or you even care about grading at all, I think people that do care about getting their cards protected and authenticated, I get it. But if you just need it in a slab for your collection, you can get a PSA 8, you can get a BGS 9. It doesn't have to be a 10 for it to look good and encapsulated, in a slab. I think like Jake is saying, I mean, for a lot of 10 prices, you could pick up 3 or 4 from the same set in an 8 or 9, like some
I'll
ARs.
tell you what's really good value, though, is you can find a PSA 8 or 9 on the market, and sometimes those 8 or 9s are way cheaper than even a raw copy.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, if you just want a binder copy, it's actually better for you to just buy a PSA 8, crack it open from the
slab and
just put it in.
And you can at least ensure it's like a near mint copy.
Exactly.
That's good. Because if you buy something raw, it could have something on the back or be really, really, if you just want a good looking binder copy, you could get like a 7 or an 8, and usually those will be fine.
Especially for
even
like
a 5 or a 6.
Especially for vintage cards, because for vintage cards especially, you almost never find a 10 anyway. Most people expect vintage cards especially to just automatically be like a 7 or an 8 because they're old, they're damaged. It's very common for them to have some level of imperfection. So especially if you just want to collect binder copies, vintage, there's just tons and tons of cards still at the ready that haven't, like I said, wiggled at all. They're still flatlining for years. And those are cards that I would say I can confidently buy right now and know that if I were to sell it tomorrow, it's the exact same price.
Yeah.
And that's where the modern market is super risky, is that if I buy a modern card, especially one that's jumped up 20x in the last month, it's really tricky because I don't know if it's going to go down to 10x or 0x in a couple of weeks. Whereas if I buy a vintage card, it might not go up, but at least I can be assured that whatever price it is tomorrow is the same price it was a year ago.
Right.
Which is neat.
It's more stable.
Yeah, it's more safe.
And I think stability is good. I think with ultra modern right now, it's just if people are trying to make super, super risky like plays and buy like certain cards that, I don't know, they're speculating are going to go up, that, but then again, it gets into this conversation of like, are you really collecting to get the stuff that you enjoy, or are you just collecting because you see this hobby and people making money in it and you want to make money in it too? I can say that without some decent experience and some veteranship in the hobby under your belt, trying to come into this hobby, especially right now, to make quick, fast plays to like make money, I mean, you may come out unscathed, but you can also get burned real quick.
I think there's an overemphasis right now that there's way more people think there are way more scalpers and investors and flippers than I think there actually are. I think there are a decent amount of people that are genuine collectors, and they're just experiencing a ton of FOMO. Maybe it's like their first time experiencing a wave of hype, because we've been in a wave of hype before.
Right.
And so we know to be patient, and we know that, there's going to be a wave that it's going to chill out a little bit.
Right, that's true. And they haven't gone through the experience of 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like, they're picking up cards right now at all-time highs, but they're almost playing catch-up where they're saying, oh my goodness, I haven't been collecting cards for 25 years, and I want to have the same collection that you and I have. And we didn't build our collection overnight.
Yes.
We built our collection over years and years of collecting.
I remember when I got back in, I fell under that mentality. And I think you just kind of have to go through it. But yes, so listen to us, guys. Again, another bonus of following and, listening to the Card Lounge podcast. So, if you're listening to us and you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button because we're dropping gems today. But yes, if you just get back into this hobby, in any hobby, you have this kind of sense of urgency that's misplaced and exacerbated by FOMO, where you remember the cards you had when you were a kid. So you're like, oh, I got to collect all those rares, all those old and then you're like, oh, but this new set came out and I have to get every alt art from this new set because later it will go up in price because stuff always goes up later. But then a month later, oh, I need money to plan for the next set because I got to pre-order as much of it. And guys, you cannot buy everything. No one can unless you just have an unlimited supply of capital. So you have to really hone in on one or two things you care about. If you have a collecting goal, I know a lot of people talk about this, and it's something that I've had to really focus on practicing what I preach, but I've sometimes had 4 or 5 or 6 collecting goals at one time, and I've had to really sit down and be like, you know what? I can't just collect all the EXs because really I'm trying to get one of every ETB
Sure.
and that costs money. And I'm trying to get one of every Topps Chrome Sparkle card and that's going to cost money. So I need to focus on those collecting goals before trying to take on new ones. And that's why I don't have a Umbreon.
Yeah.
Because at one point I was like, I need every alt art from the Sword and Shield era. I have about 70% of them. I'm missing a lot of the expensive ones, and a lot of the ones I didn't pull the trigger on have gone up now and are
Sure.
way more expensive. But you know what? I'm just going to wait on those because I do believe that eventually those will be cheaper than where they're at right now, because right now
Yeah.
everything is so expensive.
So that's absolutely something I agree with, is that collecting is a really long-term journey.
Yeah.
And it's really satisfying when you complete or add a piece to your collection that you've been missing for years.
Yeah.
And when you try to cheat it and try to get all those pieces all at once, I think it's less fulfilling
It is.
than going through that journey and that process, because it's way more valuable. And you and I aren't the same kind of collectors. You collect Elite Trainer boxes. I collect booster boxes. You collect Charizard. I collect Pikachu. Obviously, we have some cards that we both collect, but in general, like, we are different collectors. That's why, like, you don't have an Umbreon inside of your collection, even though if you pull one, you might.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you don't have one because there's just other cards that you picked up first because you value those cards.
I would
more
rather have
your
those in my collection. Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, we didn't make the Umbreon play because we weren't thinking about it in ways like, oh, this card's gonna go up so quickly, we have to pick one up. But
Yeah.
that's partially it. I don't think a lot of people are picking up cards right now just because they think it's gonna be a great investment. I think they're picking up cards right now because cards are moving up so quickly that they feel scared that if they can't buy this card right now, they'll never have a chance to pick it
Well,
up.
and you know what? I get that fear because that's what happened to me with the Mario and Luigi Pikachu. I didn't pick it up. And do you remember the last time, or I guess the first time I told you that story?
Yeah.
And I was like, should I buy the Pikachu right now for $5,000? And you were like, well, and you're right. I mean, we had other money things to
Yeah.
spend on, like creating this podcast. But I could have scrounged up some dough, maybe pulled together $5,000 for it. Do you see where it's at now?
Yeah, it's like an 8 or 9 or even like a 10 grand
It's
card.
like $8,000.
And-
So I'm like, well, dang it. Now it's going to be $3,000 more for me to get it.
And that's just,
And-
I'll be honest, that's just part of the hobby, is that sometimes you got to let them go. Like,
Right, well,
some
so-
of them are going to be the ones that get away.
But okay, so do you think a lot of people just don't want the Umbreon to be the card to get? Dude, I just got called by a buddy yesterday, and he was telling me how he's trying to sell some cards that are at their all-time lows now to buy the Umbreon, which is at an all-time high. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and I said it that way to him, and he goes, oh yeah, I am doing that, huh? But he still wants to do it. So it's
Yeah.
like, why is that mentality so strong in people? That I don't know, because he probably thinks the Umbreon a year or two from now will be a 5, 6, 7K card. So why not pick it up when it's 3K?
I told someone in chat this because someone in my comment section said, I'm ready for the Umbreon to be a $50,000 card.
Oh my.
And I told them, dude, if the Umbreon is a $50,000 card, then that means the Umbreon market is literally over $1 billion. Just the Umbreon card, not any other card. Just Umbreon would be over $1 billion. And I said, that just sounds ridiculous to me, and I just can't imagine that happening. So I wanted to explain to him how ridiculous that
Is
was.
that just based off the population?
Yeah, it's based on the population multiplied by 50,000. And
goodness.
that's where it would end up. And I like the way you told that guy the same kind of story, which is basically, wait, are you really going to buy a card at its all-time high by selling a bunch of cards at their all-time low?
Yeah.
And that seems counterintuitive because obviously we know as general people, just generally know to buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
And he's doing the opposite of that.
Right. Why?
Because ultimately it's a psychology thing.
Yeah.
When things are low, no one wants to buy them. And when things are high, no one wants to sell those because they think it's going to keep going up. And the other one, they think it's going to keep going down.
Right. But as we've learned from, smart people and good economists and Warren Buffett, not to take it to like a huge stock conversation, but when everyone is trying to sell stuff, if you are the salmon that's swimming, the opposite direction in the stream, that is the best way that you can kind of get the most gains, which will allow you to put more money towards your collection, especially if you're only treating your collection as the money that you use for your collection. If you want it to grow and expand without you needing to, put in other cash from your job or doing other stuff to like put more investment into it, the best thing you can kind of do is just, depending on what you like and what you don't like, care about that. But you should always know that if everyone's selling something, that's probably means that you should be buying. And if everyone's buying something, that is probably a good time for you to sell.
Okay, and the one other thing I want to bring up is that we are talking about pieces of cardboard here.
Yeah.
I don't need any of these cards to survive. I would like to have some cards inside of my collection, and I'd be happy with them inside of my collection. But if I don't get a certain card, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. What I would lose sleep over is if I cannot afford rent, if I cannot afford to feed my family, if this card puts financial stress on me.
Ooh.
So ultimately, that's what I'm trying to say is that it's a hobby. You and I are spending technically expendable income that we can afford to lose ultimately. So if you cannot afford to lose this money, don't pick it up. It's usually our advice.
Right. Some people would say, I will lose sleep over not having. Actually, okay, so that's how that conversation evolved. He goes, you know what? I understand you're right. I understand the basic economic principles you just explained to me.
Yeah.
But he's like, these cards, though, I no longer really want. I don't care for in my collection. But that Umbreon, I do want that in my collection. What do I say to him then?
Okay, that's a great call out. Because
sell low and then buy the card you want, which is at its all-time high?
I would, as someone who is his friend, at that certain point, I would ask him, why do you want this Umbreon now and not 2 months ago? Why didn't you want it 12 months ago? And trying to understand his perspective.
I think I did. I think I asked him exactly that. That's where the conversation
Because if the
evolved.
reason he wants the card right now is because everyone wants it as well, then I would say that's going to be bad because it's going to be a card that he's not going to want later down the line when no one wants it.
Well, it's like, why didn't you get it earlier? He was focused on getting those other cards now that he's trying to sell.
So that brings up the point why did those other cards?
And I think those cards were more poppin'.
Yeah. If he's someone that is
back then.
If he's okay, I'll be honest, he sounds like a hype beast and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're someone But you know what I mean? If someone that just wants to go with whatever is exciting and they like following the trend. There's nothing wrong with following the trend.
True.
But if that's who you are, then you have to kind of see that as who you are and know that if you go down that path, like obviously if you ride every single hype wave, you're going to get burned because once a card is no longer popular, if you want to sell it, then you're always going to buy high and always going to sell low.
Yeah.
And if that's who he wants to be as a collector and someone who's just enjoys riding the wave, there's nothing wrong with that. If someone right now is like super hyped for Journey Together and Prismatic Evolutions, I'm not going to say like their opinion is any less than mine.
Right. I would say it's interesting because I wouldn't necessarily consider him like a hype writer. I also, I don't know him super well. Like I've met him and he's a cool dude. So it's like we've become, like friends. I would say like, oh yeah, like I'm friendly with him. He's a friend. But we've probably just within the collecting space, I don't know him as well as like you, for example.
Sure. There are sets that I would say I would ride for, like Crown Zenith. I would say from the moment Crown Zenith was announced, I always knew that I was going to enjoy that set.
Yeah, right. Because
151. I always knew I was going to enjoy 151.
151, same. Yeah. Yeah, Crown Zenith is like, it's now just starting to get the flowers it deserves. Everyone was like disregarding Crown Zenith. I was like, guys, look at the alt arts in this. Yeah. Look at just the pull rates even. It's fun to open. It's fun to collect. I still, speaking of a collecting goal, I would want every art rare and special art rare in a 10.
Sure. For example, with like Prismatic Evolutions, I don't find the set that exciting. I think the set is cool as a set. If I'm looking at the set from just the list of cards, I think that's great. But from a pack opening experience, I don't enjoy opening up Prismatic Evolutions pretty much.
Really? Until you hit a God pack. And then you forget this is the first set ever in English Pokemon where they went, okay, we're finally gonna put a full-on God pack.
To me,
in.
I like my average pack opening experience, which is ultimately I know if I open up a Crown Zenith ETB, I'm always gonna have fun. I always know I'm probably gonna get like 5 hits, like 2 or 3 Galarian Gallery cards, and maybe I'll get an Altar.
Oh yeah, it's tough pull rates in Prismatic.
Exactly.
But you know what I'll say? I think people have put a little too much emphasis on art rares and like full art. So see, this would not be hype. I wonder how many people feel the way I do about it. I actually kind of really enjoy. It's just so expensive right now, which is why, I hope I'm on team, end the scalpers, print Prismatic Evolutions into the ground, because opening that set, like the Pokeball Hollows and the Master Ball Hollows, while just a regular, it reminds me of old school Pokemon cards, but they put the texture on the whole card and they add extra color and texture and detail to the Pokeball reverse hollows. And it makes even just like when you see the plain artwork of like the Feraligatr, for example, it's kind of plain. But when you add in when you see its reverse Pokeball hollow, it is actually like an amazing looking Pokeball hollow or Pokemon card. Like it looks beautiful.
Okay, 2 things on that. First one, the Feraligatr, they didn't put in Prismatic Evolutions. They left it out. Did you know that? I found that out recently.
Wait,
it's in Terastal Festival, but the Master Ball Feraligatr is not, the whole entire set of like the Totodile to the Feraligatr is not in Prismatic Evolution.
Okay, well then I know, I've seen it in Terastal Festival and it looks amazing.
I think it should be.
Is it? Wait, the Feraligator's not in English?
I know it's not in English because I did the research on it, and I was surprised it was not, because it should be an identical to Terastal Festival.
Why did they take it out? Yeah,
I don't know. I disagree with that.
For example, I can also think of some other English ones because I was just looking at them the other day.
That was not really my point. I just wanted to bring it up that it wasn't in there.
That is crazy because I was
think it's cool
did I
too.
see that in English? The Sylveon Pokeball Hollow or Master Ball Reverse, the detail on it just looks really good. Any of the cards, even the Furfro looks good with like detail on the artwork. Like I really enjoy trying to collect all the Pokeball and Master Ball hollows.
I half agree in that I think those cards are really cool, and I think they should do that for all future sets. I do think it's lazy that they didn't put illustration rares inside of Prismatic Evolution.
Okay, so you think illustration rares, the secret rares, reverse make it a Pokeball or Master Ball as opposed to some lame reverse hollow like they've always been doing.
Sure.
And then God packs. And then that's the most. Actually, yeah, why don't. If you did
it's
that.
It's not perfect either. To me, like I don't love the Master Ball and Pokeballs inside of Prismatic Evolutions.
Gives it a little extra
I don't
chase,
mind that.
Though.
I don't mind that. It worked really well in 151. And the reason it works really well in 151 is that you're collecting one of every one of the original 151 Pokemon. Mm-hmm. So the theme is really, really strong. The problem with Prismatic Evolutions is that it's really hard for you to figure out. I don't really even know what half the set is because it's really a hodgepodge of reprinted cards. A bunch of the Eevee hollow rares is just cards from way older sets.
Yeah.
And the other thing is there's just random Pokemon inside of it. Did you know you can get like a Monkey Dory or an Okie Dokie Master Ball?
Yeah.
And those aren't cards that I would even expect to see inside of Prismatic Evolutions.
I gotcha.
So I find the set really like kind of weird. Like it's like an amalgamation of other weird stuff.
I feel you on that.
It's a hodgepodge.
There's a little hodgepodge-ness to it, and I did not like how some of the card artworks are just repeats.
Yeah.
Like I would see some, and I was like, wait, isn't this from Twilight Masquerade? And it is. It's just the same exact card from Twilight Masquerade, except now they put the PRE at the bottom. And then there's like the chance at a Pokeball reverse or a Master Ball reverse.
The special illustration rares inside of Prismatic Evolutions, I think, are really, really carrying the set. I don't even think the Pokeball and the Master Balls are that big of a deal. I think they're cool. I think it's nice to pull them, but they're not really like the carrying point. It's really the special illustration rare. And my issue with that is that if I buy 4 Prismatic Evolutions Elite Trainer box and rip 4 of them open, even at retail price, which is, let's say, like $60 each, I don't know if I'll even get one special illustration rare,
right?
Which is just an awful feeling.
We've gone through just opening packs like 40, 50 in a row,
Yeah.
and you might not see one SIR.
Yeah, and that's not a fun experience.
No,
for
you're,
like the
you're right.
viewers
For
or
just
you.
the average, yeah. Someone maybe if they can only get 10 packs, you'd want to get at least like right. We were talking about Crown Zenith and why that's so fun. 10 packs of Crown Zenith, you'll hit some sort of special rare, whether it's just a regular art rare or a secret rare. Maybe you get that gold.
Even
Giratina.
151, the pull rate is really solid, actually.
I guess. It's still tough to hit. Yeah, better than Prismatic Evolutions.
It is better.
Honestly, they should have made the Prismatic hit rates kind of more similar to 151, and I think it would do better because I do think people are especially pissed that Prismatic Evolutions commands the price that it does, and then when you open it, even at MSRP, you're not even hitting the big. But you know what? That's kind of how Evolving Skies is.
Yeah, which is why it's called Evolving Skies.
No, right, but it's like. You really just have a hodgepodge of Pokemon. No one cares about the regular rares. Mm-hmm. Evolving Skies didn't even have art rares. It's not a thing yet. And then you just have Vs. No one cared about it. You had the regular V Maxes. No one cared about it. And then really, you just want the alt arts. And the only alt arts are the Umbreon, the Rayquaza, Dragonite, and Noivern. And maybe like one other, but like just a handful of cards for the whole set, and that's what everyone's chasing. Yet it's more expensive than every other set in Sword and Shield.
So for me, obviously, in the long term, no one cares about Evolving Skies pull rate anymore because no one's really ripping Evolving Skies anymore. And in 5 to 10 years, probably no one will care about Prismatic Evolutions pack opening experience, even if it sucks, because all people care about are the cards inside of the set. But as of right now, as someone who's ripping open packs and knowing that Prismatic Evolution is readily available, I think the pack opening experience kind of sucks. Agreed. So that's what people are going to experience is that 1 out of 10 collector is probably going to have a really fun experience when they pull themselves a really solid special illustration rare. And 1 in 100 collector is going to get a really good experience when they pull themselves a God Booster pack or something of that nature. But for the vast majority of people, if you're opening up Prismatic Evolutions, on average, you're going to have a worse time than if you weren't going to rip it open.
You know what the irony behind that is, though? We said that we would want a better time. And I say we as the collective hobby.
Sure.
Do you get what I mean by that?
We, as in, like, the hobby wants a fun pack opening experience?
No, it's the buy, sell low, sell high, buy low, sell low. It's, okay, the fact that I remember, because now we've been in this long enough, Crown Zenith, when you can get a hit out of every couple of packs, everyone complains. Everyone says, it's too easy to get hits. People, the valuable stuff, oh my gosh, actually, Obsidian Flames. Sure. If you opened an Obsidian Flames box, I think every single booster box, you're almost guaranteed the Alt Art Zard, the Full Art, or the shiny one.
I'll say that's because it's a smaller set, which is kind of like smaller sets.
But they could still make it hard.
But I will say...
Evolving Skies, you could open 12 boxes and not hit the Umbreon.
But I will say, if, like, for example, Crown Zenith has like the highest pull rate, and people don't complain about it. I think Crown Zenith is like right below 151 as like a top tier set, and it's because of variety. It's because you're not pulling the same card again and again. You know what I mean?
Okay, that helps dissipate.
It's that if you open up 100 Crown Zenith packs, you're getting constantly new and interesting cards.
And the gold chases were a different artwork than just making a gold version of the same artwork. I think that helped it. So the variety point, sure, valid. But I do remember points in times, and people in the comments will remember where when the best rare in the set, it's like everyone can get it. Mm-hmm. It's the same. It's then no one wants it. Then everyone goes, oh, it's so easy to get. Oh, this is lame. Oh, this is the best card. This is the second best card. You can pull. Everyone pulls this in 20, 30 packs, and then no one cares about it.
Sure.
So then we ask for a true chase, like a God pack or the new Umbreon, the Sunbreon, whatever you want to call it, Umbreon EX out of Prismatic Evolutions. And then when it's so hard to get these ultra premium rare hits, then everyone's like, oh, it's not easy enough. It's not, but it's the exact opposite. It's like the grass is always greener. We just are on the other side of the fence now.
I have agreed with that because I do know what you're talking about. I have experienced sets that have been kind of bombs. They weren't terrible sets, and I'll bring up examples like Shining Legends. that set only had like 70 cards inside of it. So if you rip open,
Really?
yes, 3 ETBs, you're going to pull most of the cards.
Yeah, shiny, right.
You're not going to get the Mewtwo card, for instance, but you're going to get most of the commons and uncommons. And if you're opening up more packs, you're just getting the same common and uncommon again and again. Same thing happened with Champion's Path, if you remember.
Yes.
Super tiny set.
So boring to opening that you always got the hollow Machamp at the end. You saw the same common, but people would just rip through it because you were just trying to get the Black Charizard V or the Rainbow Charizard V Max.
So I absolutely understand where you're coming from, where you're saying like, oh, if a set is too tiny, it's really, really boring. I think Prismatic Evolutions is the right size of set, and I think it's cool that it has an awesome chase card. I don't even expect to ever pull the Umbreon. It would be an awesome experience to pull it.
Right.
But I just want my average pack experience to be exciting because I've done an ETB opening for my channel. I've done a Pokemon Center ETB opening for my channel. Both videos, we pulled nothing good. I hyped it up the whole entire time because I thought it'd be hilarious to be super excited whenever I pull a holo rare.
Yeah.
And that happened way more often because I literally think my best card from my pack opening was a $4 Master Ball Monkey Dory. And the other one was like a $3 or $4 Pokeball Flareon. And those were my best hits from 20 or so Prismatic Evolutions packs, which is normal. That is a normal experience.
Those are supposed to be the hits now. Those
Exactly.
Pokeball and Master Ball.
And that's not exciting.
And I think they look cool. I'm like excited about those. Like I'm trying to get every single one, and then I realize I'm gonna have to get every single one of the SARs, and I guess I'm gonna have to just.
So are you committed to collecting Prismatic Evolutions?
Yeah, I'm going to try to master set. You know what's wild? We've pulled the God Pack, which I guess is the only way we've seen every evolution card. But the crazier part is, I guess outside of that, it's still tough to see just a single pull evolution. I don't know if we've maybe pulled once or twice. Like,
have you guys pulled the Umbreon just randomly?
No.
So you guys haven't even pulled the
solo Umbreon. But you know what? We just haven't even seen one of the artworks I really love that's not the evolution? It's the Ceruledge.
Yeah, you guys haven't seen it.
I haven't even seen it out of what must be now. How many packs have we got? 500, 600, 700 packs?
Well, that makes sense because with 32 special illustration rare, you aren't expected to really see them all for another 1,000 or something ridiculous.
Man, I guess. But then it does seem like we would have run into... You think you would see that once before you see one God Pack.
Yeah.
Or a Demi. We pulled 2 Demi God Packs.
You pulled 2 Demi God Pack and 1 God Pack.
And no Ceruledge SAR.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Odd. It seems odd to me.
It is. It is odd.
Yeah.
Have you guys opened up any of the tints at all? I heard that there were batching issues with those where you could pull one special illustration rare inside of each group of them. But I do know that's batching because some people have ripped open their whole entire case of tins and have not pulled a special illustration rare,
so I think
which is what I expect.
Yeah, it's just a batching issue. I mean, haven't gotten anything crazy out of the tins. I do need to make a video on the surprise boxes. Oh, I should have brought one here. Wait, do we have one here?
I do think we do have one.
Okay, maybe I'll film and then
basically, I'll tell you what it is. It's a really large box.
I know. It's empty inside, right?
It's super empty inside. There's 4 booster packs and 1 promo card, and that's really it.
What a waste of space.
It is a little bit of a waste of space.
Yeah.
Because in Japan, they would have probably put that into a tiny little deck almost, or a little...
It's just funny because it reminds me of opening a sports card box. Yeah. Because there's certain sports card, like if you open a mega
really
box,
premium one?
It's like the cards will be there, and this is all just empty space to the side.
You know how much those surprise boxes are right now? They're $70 to $80 for one, and they contain 4 booster packs.
Yeah, $20 a pack.
That's insane.
And then you get an EV promo.
The EV promo makes sense.
That helps pay for the $20 a pack.
The EV promo makes sense because, well, one, it's just a regular EV promo. It just so happens to have the word Prismatic Evolutions on it, and that's all it takes.
Okay, actually, have you looked up? I haven't looked it up yet, so maybe we could play a game where. What do you think the Umbreon EX Prismatic Evolution stamp, out of the surprise box, goes for right now? I have not looked at this data.
Do you want to give me your guess?
Oh man. Okay, it's not going to be the alt art.
Yeah, it's just the regular Umbreon
I want to
EX.
say people got to treat it at least with as much respect as like the Pokeball Umbreon or the Master Ball Umbreon.
I mean, it's a 1 in 8 chance of getting it, I suppose, if you open
Oh yeah, right.
8
but,
surprise.
But that's 8. But not, who's opening 8 surprise? I don't even. I didn't get 8 surprise.
Okay.
And I've got. I don't think your average everyday collector is
Sure.
even opening up one of these, to be honest.
Right. So what price do you think it is? I think my price will be close because I have seen some of their prices. I haven't seen the price on the Umbreon.
No, I haven't looked at any of the stamps.
I
You
did
looked at
open
some-
up one, so I did at least price check the one that I opened.
Dang it. Okay, so I have no reference point. I'm just going to say, again, with no looking up any, maybe $70.
I think you're really, really close.
Wow, really?
Because the one I opened up was the Leafeon, and it was 30.
Okay.
And basically, obviously, you want the Umbreon because it's Umbreon.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes for it to be more expensive. So
gotta
I
be
would say the
double.
Umbreon probably has a double premium on
Let's
it.
look it up.
And the
Let's see. Wow, what if it's exactly 70? I'll be so proud of myself.
And the reason I basically think it's probably double is because you can pull 1 in 8, you know. It's not that hard to pull.
Right.
Right? There is a premium to it, but it's not that hard to get it.
If it was like not as well, like what if it was rare, even though you're thinking it's stamped and they're all stamped, so they should all be equal rarity, but what if they made less of the Umbreon? They've done that with certain
I think it's exactly 1 in 8.
certain cards. Prismatic Evolutions stamped promo. I can't even get it to come up.
I see multiple copies of it on eBay.
Oh my gosh. I see it for 90. Do you see it for 90?
The cheapest one I can see on eBay looks like 80. So you were very close.
So I was close.
$80 is still really, really high.
Jeez.
Considering like, actually, you know what? I guess that makes sense.
But and what's funny is, see, if people are willing to pay that, and you talk about a surprise game, and you talk about you get a guaranteed promo, and the other ones like Leafeon's $30. I asked the general, you know, when you were talking about, you think the surprise box is really high at $80. It's 4 packs, and you have a shot at a card in there that's worth $80.
But
of
that to
course,
me,
it's got to be at least $80.
So I don't even like the promos because I don't really care for them. Because
Sure.
if they were unique artworks, mind blown.
then everyone, these boxes would be
Maybe
$400 each. It would be insane.
Okay, maybe because you got to understand.
No, 100%.
Because even if you have a really cool promo card inside, and we know a bunch of really cool promo cards inside, like the premium Flareon, Jolteon, and Vaporeon collection.
Yeah, look at those boxes.
Now, but when at release, they were still going for like $80 to like maybe $100. That's
weren't triple what the MSRP was, right?
But if they were,
those have always been the hottest product on the shelves for like a 2-year stint.
If you say the surprise box is $400, that is like 20x retail. You see what I mean?
Okay. That was the hottest product on the shelves for two. Okay, I mean, I was being a little hyperbolic.
Sure.
But I just mean to say it probably realistically be at like 200, 250 a box in the sense that you have the chance at an Umbreon, a unique alt art. It's a promo, so it's limited, and you can only get it from these boxes that no one can get their hands on. And we have the intensity of the market right now. It would just be insane.
I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's absolutely possible.
Sure.
The reason I say I'm less likely to say it's going to go that high, and we're talking about a hypothetical scenario that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But the reason I say it might not go that high is because we know examples of previous promo cards that are really, really cool that people still didn't really pick up immediately, like the Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. Those stay cheap, even though it comes with 3 Charizard alt art card, which is kind of insane. The Greninja and the Kingdra EX, those are really cool too.
They overprinted it. Look at the demand right now, and look at how if they printed those surprise boxes, I should have gotten like 10 cases, 20. Sure. But bigger stores would get like 100 cases of it. Sure. In each case, you get like a stack of 5 or 6 or whatever it is. I'm just saying, like, if they did that. So if we go back to Charizard UPCs, how cool those promos were. You know, the Godzilla looking one for the V. They're alt arts, but if they cut the production down by 1/100th, and instead of everyone having the chance to buy 4 each, which is like kind of like what happened, and instead you have 20 people fighting for 1, those promos would be a little different today.
Sure.
And all the differences is supply. Supply, like demand was still strong, but supply was so strong, it just made the demand like so insane. And that's, a lot of market obviously is driven by supply, as you've pointed out, because demand is fickle. Demand can always kind of ebb and flow in a certain way, but supply is finite.
Right. I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is that those promo cards were really, really cool. And I agree with you. Supply absolutely played a hand in it. But even those super, super cool promo cards were $10 to $20 at release. And obviously these promo cards I think are way less not cool, just because they are just the regular EX promo with a stamp on it. It's not even a unique art.
And yet look at
and
where
the
their
Umbreon's
prices
like $90
are.
bucks.
Exactly.
And I think that's wild.
Well, I guess that just shows you the power of supply, but also demand right now. Dude, everyone is on Umbreon right now. Umbreon is the new fan favorite that everyone's trying to jump on the hype train.
And we talked about this a little bit, is that ultimately if the Pokemon company overturns that lever and they start cranking out Umbreon Ultra Premium Collection, Umbreon Super Premium Collection, Umbreon Figure Collection, and doing like more stuff EV related for the next 5 years.
Then we'll get character fatigue for Umbreon.
Sure.
And it'll
and
just
then
go
we'll
back
move on to maybe like Greninja,
Charizard,
Mimikyu,
Greninja.
Blastoise. Who knows what the next popular Pokemon will be.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I can see that now is that people are much more flexible in what they collect than I think collectors give us credit for. Is that at a certain point, I don't think people expected Charizard to ever be dethroned or other Pokemon to ever be more popular. But it goes to show that the fact that people's taste can change in this period of 5 or 10 years could mean that in 5, 10, 20 years, things are completely different.
Charizard's not even the 10th most popular
Exactly.
Pokemon.
Umbreon is now the 5th Pokemon because there's so many other big ones.
So there's one thing I don't think, though, because nostalgia plays so much of a role in Pokemon and how this was even revitalized back in 2020 or even 2016. At any moment where there was a new resurgence in the hobby, do you honestly think they can create a new Pokemon in a generation now that will be as iconic as Charizard, Pikachu, Blastoise, Venusaur, Umbreon, even stuff from Gold and Silver, like Lugia? Look at Lugia. Look at Ho-Oh. How epic the legendaries were. Dude, legendaries now are like Monkey Dory and Okidogi, and they're the same color palette, and they're like not even detailed or threatening or awe-inspiring at all.
Sure, it just depends on the Pokemon, but I do think like there's still room for them to create like way more cool Pokemon.
I don't think they do.
And you might disagree, and you might think like it's always going to be like the same group, but I just don't know enough to say for sure what Pokemon are going to be like the most popular. They do polls all the time, and some of the more popular Pokemons are still like Greninja and Mimikyu are in the top 10. And those came out within the last, I would say, the more recent gens than the super old gens, obviously.
Yeah, Greninja is interesting. I will say, speaking of like how Umbreon and how I brought it back to the games, and also Umbreon, if I remember correctly, had a great showing of like awe and mysticism in the anime. Greninja was a heavy, like Ash's Greninja, right? Like they didn't even do a Ash's Charizard where he fused with, So Greninja, I mean, could they make, I mean, that's what they're trying to do with the new anime, right? They're trying to push like Florigato and the new Sword and Shield. They haven't even evolved into like Meowscarada and Skeledirge, but they're trying to push the new starters to be as epic, and I don't think it's like
it just depends.
Working.
And
they're still using. Did you see the big legendary they introduced in the new anime? I just saw this on TikTok. They're showing like shiny Rayquaza.
I think that's cool.
Well, no, I would think it's cool too if it was in the anime in a cool way. Mm-hmm. They got shiny Rayquaza, freaking legendary in the ozone, can like beat down Kyogre and Groudon, supposed to master the sky, control the masters of the sea and the land, getting beat up by Florigato and Crocolore.
That's weird.
In this new story. Yeah, these new kids with their brand new starter Pokemon. Floragato's jumping in the air and hitting it with a Razor Leaf, and Rayquaza's like getting like someone splashes a waterfall on the Rayquaza, and it's like it like keels backward, and you're like, dude, this makes this. You're like hurting Rayquaza's image. I mean, yeah, regardless of all the video games and the culture that brings, I just think cards right now for Pokemon is just on fire. Like, we have all this hype built up for Journeys Together. We have all this hype built up for the new Team Rocket set. And really, right now, it's crazy times in Pokemon with Prismatic Evolutions.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is that I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, which is unfortunate. Yeah. We just started the Pokemon hype, like really. It's only been like 2 or 3 months of build up, and that's very normal. The hobby goes in waves. Most people know collectible goes in waves. The unfortunate thing is that this hype wave probably will last for 12 to 16 more months, even with more releases and more stock and more print runs. Ultimately, like we have like Team Rocket set, we have Mega Evolutions coming back.
Oh my gosh,
we have 30th anniversary coming back mid next year. And I think after the 30th anniversary set, I think hype will finally start dying down.
Well, I think there's a little lull again, and then 30th anniversary is what brings it back up. Or you think it's strong all the way to the 30th anniversary?
I wouldn't mind a small lull. I wouldn't mind a 6 months lull.
I wouldn't mind it either.
Yeah.
I would love it. Well, yeah, guys. I mean, you know what? You guys let us know in the comments below if you think that this hype is going to last for another year, a year and a half, 2 years. And me and Jake know how hard it's been to get Prismatic Evolutions. So you want to pick some giveaway winners for those Prismatic Evolutions items we were going to give away to folks?
Sure. Let me pull it up for you, and we can pick 3 winners.
All right, guys. So we've got 3 potential winners here. So the first name that we randomly generate, that winner is going to receive the Prismatic Evolutions ETB. The second winner is going to get a Prismatic Evolutions poster collection. And the third winner is going to get the text sticker collection.
All right. You want to pick the first winner?
All right. First winner, Ghost Blocks GG. You just won a free Prismatic Evolutions ETB.
And I will reach out to all these winners. I'm going to pick up winner number 2. And winner number 2, we got Noob Ally 91. Congratulations, Noob Ally 91, on winning your poster collection. And you want to pick the last winner.
All
we
right.
have 935 comments from different unique commenters.
Oh, my goodness. All right. And the last winner is Robbie Earthak 7441. Rob, you are the third winner of the text sticker collection. Now remember, guys, when Jake reaches out to you, you will have 48 hours to respond. If we send messaging to a winner and then they don't respond with how we can obviously get in contact with them or get their shipping info to send them the stuff, then we will go and we'll pick a new winner to get that specific item. So if you've just been selected, remember, guys, you got to keep watching, and then you got 48 hours to get back in touch. And yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys for watching today's video. This has been a Card Lounge podcast. Let us know what your thoughts are down in the comment section, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, see you next time.